thanks very much for joining us today. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the title of the show is A Proven Route to Profit. I want to kick off straight away, though, with one of our best kerfufflers, one of the best agents around, and he's actually one of the people that's given you a 5-star review on the site, and that's Paul Morgan of Fowl Hayworth. I know a big client of yours. And he describes 20AA as the best kept secret in a estate agency. Now, I'm a sucker for a gotcha headline like that. For those that won't know about you, and I think it's fair to say it's a really good description, isn't it? Because actually, you do a huge amount out there in the industry that isn't well known. Could you just give us a bit of an overview for those that don't know the business?
Yeah, so I think you're exactly right, Simon. The review that we got from Paul is a really good way to describe 20EA, essentially, because we've been operating in the kind of home mover sector through our sister brand, 20CI, for kind of over 10 years now. And 20EA was set up about 4 years ago to actually kind of bring the offerings that we have specifically to the estate agency market. So we actually got into estate agency through the acquisition of Visi Home from Supplier a few years ago.
Yeah,
a lot of estate agents had a deep love for Visi, and that's basically where we started out as far as the sector's concerned. 20CI holds the largest file of home mover data in the UK. It tracks the entire property market at a very granular level. And what actually makes us different is that we have over 4,000 different sources that underpin our property market data. So rather than us just taking, a listing from one source, the really kind of unique thing about our data is that we've usually seen it from multiple sources. So we can really verify the accuracy that property is actually on the market. It has just had a price reduction, what the price is, and all of that kind of granular detail. We actually can guarantee we can kind of look at the accuracy because we have seen it from multiple different sources. So we actually work already with some of the largest estate agents in the UK. Our data is fed into over 3,100 estate agency branches across the UK. So we've got a massive client base, and those agents are using our data daily to win instructions, essentially. So as far as being the best kept secret is concerned, I think that's definitely a truism for 20EA, because there's lots of people that use our data, and it's some of the largest estate agents in the country, but not a lot of people have necessarily heard of us. So we are trying the kind of the reason that we launched the products that we're going to talk about with you today is to try and get that same data to the smaller estate agents who don't maybe have teams of data analysts who are there to be able to ingest the data and kind of do all the business intelligence reports off the back of it and run their marketing campaigns. We built our SaaS products specifically for smaller agents so that they can get the benefit of our data without having to have that in-house expertise that the larger estate agency groups do.
And the irony is there, of course, is actually, the smaller ones, probably fair to say, a bit more agile in the way that they can use that data, have greater need of that data, don't you? Because as you said, they haven't got research departments sat around poring over these statistics. Yeah,
absolutely. So we really want to give that kind of level of support to estate agents that don't have that resource to hand, because it means that they can actually get it from us instead, essentially.
Yeah, I was talking to the guys earlier, actually, the Smith guys, and we were talking about this data things, and of course it's not like there's one master record. I think some agents think it is. It's not one site you go to, is it? You do have to pull it from these data lakes, as I think they're called, aren't they, to be able to further validate that.
Simon.
No, it's a word I've picked up. It's a phrase I've picked up. So. But that's true, isn't it? And by being able to do that, have those. Did you say 3,000? Or did you? How many?
We've got over 4,000 different sources that feed into our property market data pool. So, it's from different parts of the journey. So, we work with survey companies, financial services businesses. There's loads of different types of data that actually go into making up our data lake.
Yes, there you go. And of course, to ask the obligatory question, I assume obviously, it obviously is. It's all above board and everything else there. It's all GDPR compliant and everything else like that. To get that sounds like a serious undertaking to get that much that level of data.
No, that's very true. And I think we are hyper vigilant about being compliant. We're not a massive company. It's nowhere in IBM, but there are knocking 150 of us. So we are most definitely large enough to be on the ICO's register. Our chief commercial officer sits on the direct marketing board that's dealing with the GDPR compliance. So we do take it very, very seriously. And in fact, one of the things that drove the original launch of the product was that we'd really moved beyond the days where passing Excel files with people's names and addresses was a terribly acceptable way of managing your marketing practices. So using the SaaS front end allows an agent to be confident that they're operating the product they're using operating in a compliant way.
Good. Well, that's great. That's a tick in the box straight off, isn't it? There, everyone you mentioned, Vizzy, I think it shows actually how well thought the product is, because when you mention it to people, many agents still kind of smile with a sense of regret that they obviously lost it. You bought it off ZBG, if I remember, didn't you? That was originally sold to Supplier, and then it came back to you. Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. So that's really interesting. And so companies like, as you said, the larger ones have been using it, but you have actually honed that then to be able to. What's the difference between rolling it out to a larger organisation and the smaller? Is it the UI? Is it the level of hand holding that's required? What needs to change to be able to roll it out to different parts of the market?
I think there are two different ways that we've had to develop the product. The first thing is that some of the big corporates take raw data feeds, so they have very sophisticated tools that take raw data into a massive set of databases, which does clever things that produces it. They spend hundreds of thousands of pounds a year managing those databases, and so are set up to take raw data feeds and use them in the right way. So that's one difference, and this is a layer that lets people log on, see a nice interface that's easy to use, and you don't need a team of analysts. And the second piece is that quite often the marketing activity is split from the branches. So possibly a bit of a techie product management answer, but if you're dealing with one of the larger corporates, then you have to have sort of two views of the product. One is the user in branch, who might be actually driving the day-to-day campaigns, and the other set of users are the people building bespoke templates, refining and doing the analysis on the campaign. What we've got, though, is a platform that allows someone to both do the analysis and manage the campaigns pretty easily.
Great. I think it's interesting that you've even just thought about it, because actually sometimes it's just products are put out there and they just assume that all agents will take them on no matter what their size and shape. And there are actually quite niche important differences, aren't there, in the way that they operate, that you need to take if you're going to get people using this in the right way, that you comfortably need to think about that minimal viable product for each demographic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that that's even true when you look at an agent with 10 branches and an agent with 2. There isn't necessarily a bespoke off-the-shelf solution that fits everybody. What we've done with our prospecting and intelligence tools is to try and build something that goes as far as we can to kind of provide that. But we still have to then work individually with each of our clients to help them to use the systems in the way that works for them. So, one of the things that's really important for us and for our clients is the customer success team. because they're the guys that, fair enough, somebody signs up for something, that's great, you've done your sales job and your sales pitch, but that's only the very start of the mountain that you've got to climb with them, because what you need to do is make sure that they get what they need out of the product, and for each agent that is different. Even it's not even just dependent upon the number of branches that they've got. You could have 2 agents with 10 branches, and they'll both want something completely different. And that's as I say, the great thing about what we do with our customer success team.
I'm not going to let you run past that statistic that did jump out. There's some corking ones there, but just to be clear again, your propensity algorithms or whatever else predicted 70. Did you say 73%?
Yes, 73% of all new instructions in 2019 were in our off-market model.
That sounded awfully Cambridge Analytica style. That's proper AI. If you mention AI to me, that's it. I'm sold. Where do I sign on the dotted?
That is our heritage. We are our data experts, and I think that is an interesting kind of a representation of that fact. In fact, in kind of true Blue Peter style, Simon, I can share some of his one I prepared earlier. I can share some of that analysis, the Bank of England stuff, with the Kerfufflers, if you think it'd be interesting.
Yeah, this is the one. Let me just add it to the stream, and then it's. Is that okay? Is that there you go?
Yeah. Are we seeing COVID-19 crisis?
Yeah, I got that.
Okay, so as I say, this is the kind of information that we've been feeding into to the Bank of England, and it features on the kind of the performance of the marketplace since the beginning of the year compared to during lockdown. Looking at new instructions, you can see the kind of the massive drop, and then we're back to now, which is also demonstrated by the big red bars that you can see here. But basically, we saw 11 weeks of lower new instruction levels than the 2019 weekly norms. We've now seen 2 consecutive weeks of growth, and that's in both new instructions and SSTCs. So at the lowest point, the market was only operating 11% of the usual volumes of new instructions, and that was the middle of April. But you can see actually now the marketplace is operating at higher levels than we would usually have seen last year, which is really encouraging. The same is true of SSTCs, and interestingly, it was 11% of the market norms for SSTCs was the lowest point as well. But you can see here that recently SSTCs are performing much higher against the weekly norms than even new instructions. So it's shown that there really is, it's not just properties that are coming to the market. There's some real buyer demand there at the moment.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously displayed in a really nice fashion as well.
Well, I think that having some nice, pretty pictures to look at is probably the easiest way to certainly the easiest way I digest things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, for asking prices, we've seen some really interesting stuff as well, because there's loads of coverage in the marketplace at the moment about the fact that asking prices would be falling. But that's not what we're seeing at all. So they're far above the norms of 2019. So that tells us 2 things. It tells us that there isn't necessarily a big drop in asking prices, obviously, but there are higher value properties that are actually coming to the marketplace at the moment. And that is reinforced by the fact that what we've seen is that the only portion of the marketplace that isn't currently back to its previous levels is for properties valued under 150,000. So that part of the marketplace is actually still quite depressed. So it's the higher value properties that are really pushing and driving the demand that we're seeing at the moment.
I was talking to an agent yesterday, quite 20 plus offices, and we were obviously talking very positively about this bounce and how sustainable it was. And I was just making the point, hopefully it will keep, obviously, it will stay for a good while, yeah. And he was making the point that he felt that the amount of discretionary movers, people that were, not those that having to move, but literally just were sick of their home, which of course you would be if you didn't like your house before lockdown. You weren't going to have fallen in love with it anymore by being locked in it, would you? So actually, that's what he felt was powering a large part of this boom as well, and why he felt quite confident that the boom would be sustained for some time yet.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the numbers by region, so what Katie was just looking at was the overall UK numbers. But if you look at the regional numbers, or rather, more interestingly, if you think that Scotland and Wales are still in the deep freeze, new instructions for England are 23% up. Sale agreed are 41% up. That's the most recent data for a week compared with your 2019 average. Now, that is a very big bounce.
It is, yes.
That's a very big bounce indeed.
Well, we spoke about, they were talking about the Boris bounce in the start of the year. I'd love to see Boris bounce, and certainly 23% wouldn't be enough. But that's what's really positive about this is, the negativity, as always, gets all the headlines, doesn't it? And it was very true that if we'd come back to, a slightly hesitant market, a negative market, the negativity would have fed on negativity, and we could have been into a downward spiral. But what's been great about this sustained boom is that that's dispelled any of that for the meantime anyway, hasn't it? Any sort of prospects of that, and the stupid house price crashes that the likes of the tabloids were talking about. Yeah,
we're not out of the woods for sure.
I think we don't have a crystal ball, and we don't tend to be, we're not market commentators in that we will predict what's going to happen. We look at what has happened and what is happening now. But I think that, as Paul says, we're not out of the woods yet, unfortunately. I mean, I'd love to really hope that I'm proven wrong. But as a business, one of the reasons why we've made a long-term commitment to offer our products at a very low rate is that we think that things may get more difficult for agents later in the year.
I do hear from a lot of people, they're talking about that October, November time as being particularly, potentially being tricky anyway, and certainly in terms of cash flow. So I understand that. By the way, I'm dispelling your rejection of you being a crystal ball with 73% of your off-market model prediction. You're at least in the tarot card reading future business. So anyway. Okay, that's really interesting. And so this sort of analysis, this really useful form of analysis, obviously you said you've been feeding it back. Do you feed this back to your clients in that kind of distilled manner as well, or do they have to kind of break down the data themselves to make these, to get this, to get these benefits?
So we've been supplying a kind of bi-weekly update to our client base throughout lockdown with information on what the market is doing. We also have a free version of our insight reporting tool, which is available to agents to sign up to look at their own marketplace specifically. Which gives them access to a lot of very detailed reports, which they can use themselves. So yeah, it's a bit of both, really.
Okay. And you're talking about in hindsight, but it would be remiss for me, as you mentioned, you are the property market experts. What can agents expect, do you think, over the coming months?
I think that, as we say, it's possibly going to get more difficult than it is at the moment. And from our point of view, having a grasp of what's going on in your marketplace and having the tools to position yourself as your own kind of, we say that we're property market experts, but agents should be property market experts in their own patch too. And the tools that we can provide them with will help them to do that. So over the coming months, it's going to become more and more important, I think, for them to be on top of what's happening in their marketplace. They can then use that knowledge to impart to vendors, and they build a trusted advisor relationship with them. So having that knowledge will help them to both win instructions and win instructions from other agents who aren't doing that.
So sorry, Katie, what you mean by that is if all the other agents are out there are being all happy clappy and no, it's perfect, now's the perfect time, but you've actually taken a much more, and it's not about obviously fear mongering, but you've been reasonable and used all the evidence that you can see to say, look, it could get a bit sticky in the months ahead. What you're working on the basis of there, it sounds to me, is that the person, the public, will remember that you were the one that gave them the right advice, and then go back to them on the basis of being the local property expert. Is that right?
Yeah, well, yeah, so you can kind of use it in that respect, but it will be very much having that knowledge in the moment as well, Simon. So okay. Being able to honour evaluation or as part of a conversation with a vendor, being able to give them up-to-date information on what's going on in their very local marketplace is going to be key, because if things are more difficult, then vendors are going to be more kind of concerned about their property sales. And we certainly saw that during lockdown. The agents that really benefited from lockdown are the ones that didn't just kind of switch everything off and hibernate. They're the ones that communicated with their vendors. They gave them reassurance. They said, if there's anything we can do to help. They gave them advice. We had clients who were actually sending letters out to, so some agents did kind of, switch off all of their marketing, but the ones that were clever about it were sending out letters to their competitors' stock saying, I really hope that you're okay and that your agent's helping you through this uncertain period. But if they're not, and there's anything we can do to help, then let us know. We're more than happy to, do a video call to help you through, maybe things that you could do to help sell the property once you can bring it back to market, and those agents are the ones that really managed to benefit from the lockdown period. And that's going to be more key if in the coming months as well, kind of, making sure that agents are being clever with their marketing. Because if there does end up being a kind of lack of property coming to market, then the two audiences that are available within the Prospect platform are going to be key. It's going to be the properties that are already on the market and those that are likely to come to market, because our off-market model gets updated on a monthly basis. So it is adjusting to everything that's been happening over the last 3 months, and it will continue to do that. So it will be one of the best reflections of the properties that are likely to instruct in a market where possibly instructions will be more limited. Brilliant.
Paul, have you managed to make it through without passing out up there?
Yeah, the wind's got up a little bit. It's a little better than it was where we started. Thank you very much indeed. I appreciate your time. Thanks a lot, Simon, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Obviously, I think that's going to be one to keep an eye on. I'd love to hear some of your market updates as well over the coming months. So we'll have you back on to talk about those. So, guys, Katie, Paul, thank you very much, and catch up with you soon.
Great. Thanks Simon.
Bye-bye.
It's sung and that's